All right, WDS LA. This is Paul.
And this is Salmia.
And we're coming to you live. This is the introduction to our new series that we're producing for you guys. We're calling it Featured Profiles, where we are going to be featuring members from our WDS LA group and bringing it to all of you. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about the idea behind this whole series. Samia, since this was your genius idea, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Dude, Paul, I love how you did that. Just handed it over to me to do the hard part. So most all our ideas come out when we're talking it out with each other. So I share the credit here. Essentially, our big why is this. We, for the past few months, have, as a group, met many of you. We have this amazing energy that we create together, and then we go away without necessarily diving in the depth of what each of us have to offer. And not knowing, what Rick Clemons brings to the table and what Amy Ball is all about and what Paul is about and what Bob Schwenkler does and, what is Natalie all about. So the intent I know we all have is to get to know each other at that level. So what we thought, Paul and I thought, was let's make it easier for you. Let's profile and bring the depth of Rick and bring the depth of Paul and Natalie and Bob and Amy. And we've got 50 people and plus growing to each of you. So as we profile, the idea is that we bring the depth so that when we do meet, you get to meet this whole person. One. And the other part was, I know that all of us show up with this intent to want to help each other. And the intent is good, but without specificity, without understanding what kind of help this other person needs or where the connections could happen, we're not going to be able to go about our daily lives and realistically focus on how to help the community, the WDS LA community. So this is our way of creating a profile that not only allows you to know the human, but also how to support the human, because you'll start thinking about them in the context of your daily life and how to connect the dots. So we're making it easier for you to hook into the goodness and the juiciness and the yumminess that is WDS. Those were the two big parts. Paul, anything else you wanted to add?
I don't know if I have anything more to add to that awesome description of the idea behind this whole thing. I will add that part of this, for me, the motivation part is in somewhat, I have to say, selfish, because I just want to get to know our group on that deeper level. And I have to say, our first interview is with Rick Clemons, who you're going to get to know here in just a minute. And just through my conversation with him, I got to tell you, the discovery of the incredible human being that Rick is, I think I was really blown away, and I think you're all going to be blown away, only because when we do get to sit down at a dinner or a potluck or whatever, we only get these little bite-sized conversations, and they're great, but to have an in-depth look into somebody like this, I love it. And, we're looking forward to having these and being able to share them with everybody in our group. That's the idea.
And Paul, one more thing. Guys, if you are listening all the way to the end of this intro, know that you all are putting amazing content and speeches and coaching and things into the world. Use this platform as a safe place for you to practice who you are becoming, who you are, and how you are now talking about yourself. Use this as a safe place to, as Rick would say, come out of the closet. So please use us in the way that we are using you.
Yeah, exactly. We're really excited to be launching this. We, of course, would love your feedback. We want to hear from everybody if you think it's a good idea, how we might be able to serve. Really, this is in service to all of you and our entire group. So by no means don't think that we're dictating how this should go. We want to hear how this works for you, if it works for you, if we should continue it or different changes that we should make. By all means, please let either of us know at any time. You can contact either of us to let us know how it's going.
So much love. Thank you.
Absolutely. WDS LA. Rick Clemons coming up here right now. All right. Today talking with Rick Clemons. Rick, thank you very much for being the inaugural WDS LA profile interviewee.
Really get to know each other here in our lovely little LA WDS community. So thanks for asking me, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's start with your background. This is kind of how I start my podcast. Would you mind telling me a little bit about going all the way to the beginning? Let's start with your,
sure.
Okay,
sure.
Childhood, growing up, and a little bit about your journey of where you are today.
Yeah, so I grew up a kid of a couple of 60s, 70s hippies, and was born in Colorado, moved to California, the Bay Area, Napa Valley within the first year, and grew up there until I was about 8 or 9 years old. Had a great life there. Nothing like growing up in the, great country and stomping through the vineyards, all that good stuff. And I know that's where I acquired my taste for wine and hanging out.
Right.
It was awesome. So my dad actually, even back then, was a contractor and did a lot of really interesting work in the Napa Valley, part of the whole Behringer family, and doing a lot of work at the Behringer winery. And then we moved to Colorado, back to kind of our roots, when I was in like 5th grade, and lived on a farm, worked the farm. I actually am one of those people that actually can say I actually went to a one-room schoolhouse. We went to a small farming community schoolhouse where it was grades, kindergarten all the way up through 8th grade. And finished my last 4 years of elementary school in that little school. And then we moved to the middle states, and we lived in Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, and went through high school, college in that area, and then graduated from Oklahoma State with a degree in nutrition and hotel restaurant management. And that's where I launched my career. I was actually assistant food and beverage director for a university in Abilene, Texas, and then became food and beverage director for another university there, and then moved back to Oklahoma and was a food and beverage director for a university in Oklahoma City area, and was kind of in the hospitality arena for the greater part of my business career. Worked for Marriott Hotels, and then in the midst of everything, found someone I really loved, got married. She was tired of living in the middle states. She was a born and bred Oklahoma girl, and came out here on a whim one weekend to surprise my parents in Southern California, and she fell in love with Southern California, and it was a crazy decision. We were flying back to Oklahoma, and she was very depressed and crying about having to go back and live in Oklahoma. And I said, well, we can think about, moving someday. And she goes, well, I'd like to really think about it. I'm like, well, like when? She's like, tomorrow. And I'm like, what do you mean tomorrow? And she goes, I want to move to California. So it was so crazy, but divine intervention showed up, and literally landed, I worked for Marriott Hotels at the time, and there was a Delta airline desk in our hotel, and I could always get crazy, ridiculous, super fares by talking to the gal at the desk. And she literally put her on a plane the next day, right back out to California to stay with my parents and kind of scope out whether we could move here. And I was expecting, we're just going to let her have this time, let her just kind of go figure this out.
Right.
And literally 4 days later, she called me and said, I got a job. I found us a house. And if you're serious, well, let's do this. I'm like, holy crap.
Holy moly. That's insane. 4 days.
It was crazy. And it was early 90s. when we made the move. And I came out here, no job. She had a job, and I got lucky that I got a job within about probably 2 or 3 months of getting out here. And we've been in Southern California ever since. I left the hospitality arena and went to work for a software company in the hospitality arena. And that's really that's what started my entrepreneurial journey.
Okay.
Was being around all this technology and being on the cutting edge of technology. My company was one of the very first that actually created a Windows application for the hotel industry to use at the front desk area. And so to get to be sitting in that kind of energy and environment was amazing. And I stepped into that role not knowing a darn thing about technology, and walked out of that role 6 years later with a pretty full head of really understanding a lot of software applications and web apps and all that sort of stuff. And again, it was just the beginning. I mean, it was like 2000, 2001 at that point in time. And it was a great opportunity that I dipped my toe when I left, because I didn't leave by choice. I got let go. In a downsizing. It was when a lot of companies were starting to do the downsizing move.
I was going to ask you, that was the whole .com as it started to burst right around then, right? Yeah.
Yep. And so, I was lucky. I was pretty high up the ladder. And so I got a nice little golden parachute. So the next year kind of worked through my personal journey. And that was when I actually also came out of the closet, went through my divorce, was learning to be a single gay guy, plus looking for work, plus being a father, and then adapting to what does it look like to be a gay father in that time of life, and in our society when things were just starting to break open on that front. And I did some consulting, so that was the first dip of the toe into the entrepreneurial world. Then the next thing that happened, a company found me that was starting a .com, and ironically, it was a .com in the hospitality industry. So it was a good fit, and that's where I really learned the entrepreneurial world. I was the third employee hired, 0 revenues to by the time I got laid off there 5 years later, we were about $6 million a year, and I was pretty much one of the top guys that had helped that happen. But through the entire process is where I learned a lot about growing pains and success and failures, and too many chiefs, not enough Indians, and sometimes not enough chiefs and too many. And so it's a great experience to kind of sit in that realm, not having really any risk other than just showing up. It also taught me a lot about being an independent entrepreneur. The way we designed that company was pretty much a virtual organization, which at that time was somewhat unheard of. It was like everybody was still playing in the brick and mortar world, even though .coms were the wave of that future at that time. And about halfway through that, I started working at home 2 days a week, and then it progressed to 3 days a week, and then pretty much 4 days a week, and I was only going to the office when necessary. And I'm really glad I had the experience, because it helped me learn not only how to be very self-disciplined about work, but it also helped me balance my life. And even though it wasn't the highest paying job I could have been in, I made great money. And I also learned a lot about myself and how I wanted to begin to design my life. And I'll never forget the day. I still remember literally came back from vacation and walked in on Monday, and they pulled me in the office and said, we really appreciate everything you've done, but we've got to make some changes. And this is a really, really hard decision. And, we know of all the people on the team, you're the one person that we know for sure will bounce out of this. And, we're cutting you loose. And that's when I really put my foot down and said, I'm really sick and tired of building other people's businesses.
Yeah.
And so, I was devastated to some degree, but I was in a much better place than I was the first time it happened. I was well beyond my coming out journey and used to being a dad, and my husband and I had been together for a while at that point in time. And we created a family life and all that sort of stuff. So I just said, I'm literally done this time. And that's kind of what led me to where I am today, of being an entrepreneur and doing lots of different things in the self-development world. So,
right.
So now I'm going to shut up and let you ask some questions. But,
wow, that's quite a lot of building blocks in your story. Looking backwards, I'm sure at the time, when we're going through it, we have no idea. But for your story, it really seems like one thing was kind of intended almost to happen that just kept building and building for you until it kind of got you to the point of where, like, look, we're setting you up for this. This is what you're meant to do. Yeah. And now you are where you are. So let me go back and ask you, was your family moving? You mentioned you moved around to a lot of states when you were younger. Yep. Was that your family just picking up and moving from place to place for like jobs or something?
It really was. Uh-huh. Yeah, my dad was a contractor, so he would kind of follow the building booms across the country. But we were also moving because I was raised Seventh-day Adventist, so there's a lot of Seventh-day Adventist communities throughout America. But there will be communities that have like Seventh-day Adventist high schools or Seventh-day Adventist colleges. So that was kind of what was driving some of that. Ironically, I don't think many people can say, so I went to the same high school that my father went to or my mother went to, and I actually had the same history teacher that my father had. So I don't think a lot of people can say that, but I'm one of those that can actually say that. In fact, it was kind of ironic a lot. I think at my high school, there was probably 5 or 6 staff members that were still there when my father went to high school. So,
wow.
Interesting journey in and of itself right there. So, but yeah, the moving was, it was one of the biggest blessings of my life. It gave me so much perspective on the world and helped me see what it really means to be adaptable and flexible and accept people for, who they are. And trust me, moving from California to Arkansas, we went from Colorado. There was the short thing of Colorado, but basically when we hit Arkansas, I identified as a Colorado kid, but my home was really California because for 8 young years of life, that's kind of what I identified with. And my dad and 3 of his brothers actually also moved to that area of Arkansas, and a couple of them came straight from California, and we weren't like the most accepted people there because in that area of the country, it's like, we don't like people coming from other places. And so there was just such interesting lessons that now looking back, as you said, Paul, the building blocks of learning what diversity and inclusion really looks like and people, and then seeing the different pieces come together. I mean, I can take pieces of my current journey and literally take them back to experiences of, college and then those first jobs and my years at Marriott that, things I do today without those stepping stones, I don't know what it would look like. There's ways I lean into that experiences almost daily in some way. And I'll be sitting here working and it'll be like, oh yeah, that kind of is like what I would have done at Marriott or, done when I was in the software business. So, for entrepreneurs and all those out there that are those WDS people, I think the beauty is us WDSers, we go and embrace life and we allow life to be those really beautiful, powerful building blocks that keep us moving forward to our intended destiny.
I think that's really a great point is, the perspective you have, at least for me, after attending WDS, it just really, really changed it. A lot more appreciation for that, the unknown, and the flexibility and change and fear and failure, through a combination of the entire weekend of going to WDS. That's why I'm so grateful for it. You know, it's a combination of the people you meet are just incredible. The speakers, of course, the main stage speakers, awesome.
Right.
And even the adventures we get sent out on, running through the streets of downtown Portland, you know, to do stuff is pretty fantastic.
It is, and it's just such a, I call it like the hand holding of humanity that occurs, you know? And I take that with me every year when I go, and I've been very blessed because I've got to do a couple other similar type, events like that. In fact, I just came back from one in Miami at the World Happiness Summit, and it was a very similar type event. And it makes you truly appreciate, no matter where you are, the things you get to experience when you allow yourself to walk through the uncertainty. You know, I remember going to WDS my very first time, and I had heard about it. I had read Chris's books and loved what I read, but it's like I don't really know what I'm about to experience, and especially didn't know, you know, if my husband would even be into it, because he's not in the entrepreneurial world. He said, well, technically he is, because he lives with one, so he rides those waves too. You know, and it was just a really amazing experience to just be fully in that kind of energy and know that without allowing yourself to step into uncertainty, how much life might you be missing? And I think that's why I continue to give myself the opportunity to be a part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. How long have you been going to WDS? When was your first one?
My first one was 3 years ago. So I've been to 3 so far. This year will be 4. And I actually wasn't going to be going this year.
I remember. You posted about that.
I'm like, not sure I'm going. And then as, you know, it came time for exchanging tickets before there was like the fee, I'm like, you know, these are my peeps, you know, and there was something that changed in my scheduling too, where I thought I was doing something else. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that. And so, you know, it was like, okay, I think this is being handed to me for a purpose. And now I'm so glad I'm going. You know, and I have no expectations. I mean, I got a main stage, you know, 360 pass again, but I just, you know, last year I had fun, and, you know, I'm going to say this, and hopefully my husband won't hear me, but he wasn't with me last year, so it was a completely different experience. You know?
Totally.
Yeah, it's a totally different experience, you know. And now what's interesting is he's decided to go this year, but he's only going to do the, you know, the non 360 experience. So I think it'll just be really interesting. But we both love Portland. We both love the energy. We've got mutual friends from WDS and Jonathan Field's Good Life Project Camp that we know we always enjoy hanging with, and just can't wait.
Cool.
I love going. I can't. And I love that we've got what we have here in the LA area, even though a lot of people don't seem to make it. At least we've still got that connection that we're trying to carry forward and keep alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited that I can just be a part of, you know, last year I was looking for it in Los Angeles and just didn't see it, didn't find it. And then this year, you know, when they announced that they were officially looking to start the local chapters, and Los Angeles was going to be one of them, you know, I had my hand up immediately and saying, yeah, let me be a part of it. Let me help get that together, because I want to find a way to, you know, you know, what's crazy is in Los Angeles, it was just really hard to find that tribe in LA. And I'm not sure why. And that seems to be the same case with Live Your Legend. There's no LA chapter for Live Your Legend, at least not any significant one.
Right.
So I'm like, why? Of all places, Los Angeles, you know? Why?
But I think,
where is that?
It's interesting because I have a couple other things I do in the LA area, and the people who run them aren't LA people. And they're like, you know, LA is just it's a great place, and the people are great, but there's just a different vibe of creating community in LA. you know. And I think because it's such a huge, expansive, you know, place, that people tend to hang out in their particular communities. You know, I feel like shooting myself every time I go to LA. It's like, this is just insane.
It's nuts.
It is nuts, but I've gotten used to it. And the other night, actually, just a week or so ago, we were in LA for an event. And my husband hadn't been, you know, with me to like an event in a while. We usually go in and go to the theater and stuff, but we're there for an afternoon event, and then we're like, let's go have some dinner and stuff. And by the time we were done, he's like, I just couldn't do this. I couldn't do this. And I'm like, yes, but you got to understand, people kind of hang out in their neck of the woods. And I've learned that because I kind of go hang out in my neck of the woods when I'm there. I mean, all my clients are in a certain little pocket. You know, I go to the same areas almost every time. So I think that's part of it. It's really hard to create community when everybody, you know, you're either Santa Monica or you're, you know, the Wilshire areas, or you're West Hollywood or Hollywood, you know, downtown or whatever. And, you know, people just kind of stay in their own little neck of the woods, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, a lot of people don't travel. I think a 3-mile radius is what was quoted to me one time by another parent friend of mine. She's like, I'm not traveling outside 3 miles. If you're down on Robertson, forget it. I'm not
yeah, exactly.
Right.
No, and people just, you know, and I get it. You know, it's not easy getting around LA, you know.
Totally.
And
it's awful.
So, yeah, in fact, it was interesting. I was having lunch with some Aussies who were in another program of mine. They happened to be here in Southern California this week. And so we were having, you know, a little coffee lunch before they headed into LA to spend the rest of the day there before they go out on their flight. And they're like, I said, so what are you guys planning on? And it's like 11 o'clock, right?
Right.
And they're here in Riverside. And I'm like, well, what are you planning for the rest of your day? And they're like, well, we're going to run to Orange County and go do something there. Then we're going to run up to Hollywood and do the Hollywood sign and go to Beverly Hills. And I'm like, no, you're not. You need to pick one thing. Trust me. You're not going to get to the Getty and all. You need to go pick one thing and go now. So, but it's so interesting.
That sounds like Aussies. They want to do it all. Right? They
want to do it all.
Right.
Yeah.
And as fast as much in a little time as possible. It's very cool. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your work, if you don't mind. Can we talk a little bit about what you do and what you do on a daily basis? And
I do as little as possible most days if I can.
Okay.
Which is not true. Anybody who's an entrepreneur listening to this, they know that is not true. You don't do as little as possible.
Right. But, that's relative.
Yeah, it's very relative. So, you know, when I got laid off from that last job, I started doing consulting. I was, you know, basically had become pretty much a marketing, branding kind of guy. And so I did a lot of small business consulting with small businesses around marketing and branding. It was right as the social media explosion was happening. So I became certified as a social media, you know, expert, coach, whatever it was. And that was great. But I was so over all of it. I'm like, I'm so tired of, if I have to write another tagline and write another brochure and create copy for another website, I'm going to just, you know, drink myself to death. Yeah. So what was interesting was I started getting a lot of clients who were coaches. And what I loved about it was each of them were in different spaces. So some were launching books, some were starting businesses, some were trying to, you know, define their niche. So there was just lots of different things. Some were starting to think about doing radio. And so, you know, it was a little bit different than the branding and marketing I'd been doing. And simultaneously, because of my journey coming out of the closet, I was suddenly surrounded by a lot of other guys who were coming out of the closet late in life. And it seemed like they were all asking me, well, how did you do it? What did you do to, you know, keep sane? You know, how do you meet guys? I'm like, okay, I'm telling these same stories. And then it just kind of dawned on me, you know what? I really am enjoying this work with people around, you know, coming out. But I realize now, and where I sit today, it's around these simplifying the chaos in life and creating a pathway to make the bold move they have to make, whatever that bold move is. And So I explored therapy, becoming a marriage and family therapist, and that just didn't turn me on. And simultaneously, I was exploring coaching, and the more I kept looking at coaching, the irony of it was back in 96 when I took the job as a VP or came on board with the software company as a director of marketing and eventually a VP, I had actually hired an executive coach to help us through a triple merger. And I remember sitting there in the conference room numerous times working with her and just really admiring what she was doing. And she actually became my first coach back in, mid 90s, which was like, that's when coaching was like, what do you mean this coaching thing?
Right.
And so again, there's the building block. It's like the block got set. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know whether to stand on it, where I was going to go with it. And then here we were, back 2008, 2009, I finally went and explored the whole coaching arena, and I became a coach. Started out as the coming out coach and immediately had a lot of success. I grew really quickly. I was on national TV within 3 months of finishing my program.
Wow.
Started a radio show and became known because I was writing and did the TV and all that. Really got known as that coming out guy. The irony was the revenue stream was very hard to produce, especially given that I was working with people who were coming out late in life. So if you're married and your wife or your husband is the one managing the money and you're the one coming out of the closet, how are you going to explain who you're paying this, at that time, $300 or $400 a month for a coach?
Right.
So that led me to go, okay, well, what's a similar sector that I can work with? And I realized that gay men who were kind of in midlife crisis mode, so to speak, I want a real relationship. I want to quit hooking up. I want to do more than this. Maybe I've got a really successful career, but I'm not fulfilled, but I need somebody who kind of really gets me as a gay man. So I simultaneously launched another brand called the Gay Man's Life Coach, and that really started to click for me. And so those had been my sustaining businesses for a while. And about 2.5 years ago, actually, it was at the very first WDS, I got this just kind of divine download that there's so much more to this helping people come out of a closet than what I'm doing, because I saw entrepreneurs all around me at WDS who were saying, oh, I really want to do this, but I'm stuck in my corporate career, or, I've got family expectations. And literally the first WDS is when I had a conversation with someone around, all these people, they're in these interesting life closets. And that was actually when everything got planted that has now become what I do now. And my new brand that's actually launching in the next couple of months. The new podcast is called Life Uncloseted. And it's about everybody's life closet. It's about stepping out of those things. The tagline is, it's simple, be bold. When you simplify the chaos and the conflict and all the craziness of life, then you're able to make the bold move that you want to make, whether it's coming out in your sexual orientation, or coming out to say, I want to be an entrepreneur, or leaving a relationship that doesn't work, or, saying, I really want to lose this weight, but I want to do it my way. Whatever those crazy life closets are, there's that space of, quelling the chaos and conflict so that you can say, yes, this bold move is what I'm going to do. And the irony is, bold moves really aren't that hard to make. It's everything that precedes the bold move. When it comes down to making a bold move, it's yes or no. I'm doing it or I'm not doing it. That's kind of what it is.
Right.
Getting rid of everything else that's the precursor to being able to say yes or no, I'm doing this.
Right.
That is where a lot of people get stuck. So I've been playing with this theme for about 2.5 years, like trying to land it. And just in the last 6 months, we have landed on the Life Uncloseted brand. People responding very well to it. They love the tagline of, it's simple, be bold. I'm in the midst of pitching out to some colleges and universities, kind of a triple offering for orientation weeks where I come in and do a It's Simple, Be Bold kind of talk to the entire, student, orientation week about this is your opportunity to make your first big, bold moves in life as young adults, and welcome to Adulting 101. And taking them through, how do you make some of these big, bold moves in your college life so that you prepare yourself to make big, bold moves the rest of your life. And so I'm just, I feel like I've landed, man. And I mean, I landed before, but this is, I'm 53 years old, and I don't say that as like, oh my God, I'm going to die tomorrow. But it's like that thing where I feel like I've found my thing that's going to it's my thing. This is going to carry me. This is what lights me up. It's what brings me joy. It's that thing that I know I can have a really big impact with. And, so I'm in the thrash of it right now, but it's such a good thrash. It's just like every day I wake up just like so excited to go create and see where we go with this. And so that's where I'm at. I've got a successful podcast that we're going to transition to the new podcast. Working on book number 2, which is called Life Uncloseted, and we're going to bring in some of the stories from the new podcast into that book. Doing a lot of speaking and looking for, more places to go do this. I actually talked to a couple of organizations about, what does the Life Uncloseted look like within your corporate culture? Where keeping people stuck in their closets, that maybe we need to revamp it. So I'm getting some traction looking at that. I've got a couple of local government agencies talking to me about bringing me in to do some of that work. So I couldn't be more excited about, what I've spent years and years creating and seeing that, when you really put the work in and you stay consistent and you do, the time, suddenly things turn. And then one day you're like, wow, I can't believe this is actually starting to happen. So,
yeah, that's awesome. I love that idea, like uncloseting life. I mean, because, we all got tons. I know I got tons in my closet.
Well, and I love the brand because what we have always struggled with is, everyone's got closets. And then, of course, the connotation always comes back to the LGBTQ story.
Right.
Yet Life Uncloseted, when I say it, people are like, oh, wow, I get that. And the connotation may be there, but it's not as strong as, everybody's got closets. I help people come out of closet. It's like, no, let's look at your life. What's holding you in that space? What has got you standing in the dark corner that you really want to do, but you keep kind of shoving it in the back closet of your life and going, well, one day or whatever. Like a bad porno magazine. Well, it's not a bad porno magazine. Let's bring it into the light and let's help you really uncloset that thing that you want to do.
Right.
And, there's 3 pillars I work with people around that are escape your bullshit, explore your fears, and elevate your effing self-expression. And even those things really resonate with people. They're like, oh, it's so simple. What you just said makes so much sense. I need to quit. I need to escape that double talk. I need to explore the real fears, get it real with them. And then I need to really elevate this piece of me that I want people to really see. So,
right.
Totally stoked about it.
Yeah, that's I like the very kind of unabashedly straightforward, just do it type of approach that you have with it, because ultimately that's what it boils down to. But for everybody, I think, it's about you're helping them uncover what those details are that's actually stopping them, and it's usually buried way down deep inside there somewhere that we just don't want to deal with or admit to ourselves.
Yeah.
And, I love that this is kind of your progression of where you've landed today. It's great. It's,
well, you said something, Paul, that I know you didn't even know what you were going to spawn from what you just said, but you said the unabashed piece. And one of the things that I've struggled with, and I think that many entrepreneurs do struggle with, is they really want to do their thing.
Yep.
And then suddenly they start getting sidetracked by, well, look how they're doing it. So, okay, I need to kind of mimic or model that. And then, oh, well, wait, now this person's doing this. And that's all well and good. I mean, and I want to, whoever's listening to this, I want you to really understand I'm not bashing any of that, because I have had so many beautiful mentors and teachers and people who have guided me. The thing that has brought this together for me, and I believe is what brings it together for every single successful person who takes the entrepreneurial road, is when you unabashedly do you your way. And what I mean by that is when I started saying things like, okay, let's bottom line this. The first thing I need you to do is escape your bullshit. That's exactly how I will talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I show up in the world.
Yeah.
And when I put those two pieces together, it's like Rick isn't going to be the guy who's like, so yeah, let's really talk about what holds you back. Let's find those things that tie you up and hold you. No, that's not Rick. But every time I tried to do that is when I failed. But the moment I said, okay, you know what, let's cut to the chase. You need to escape this bullshit you're feeding yourself right now. And what's so interesting is, when I started letting my brand be that brand, kind of like a Gary Vaynerchuk, where you just say what's on your mind, I suddenly started attracting the right people, the right talks, the right gigs, because that's the authentic Rick showing up. And when people see the real you, and they see your real business, and they see your real brand, and they see your real direction, and the real products that you hold so tightly to you, that's when you get to see the real success that you created.
Being your authentic self as opposed to trying to emulate somebody else. Yeah. And
I know that for me, I can do this. And it's one of the things that people have said that I didn't really catch until somebody pointed it out to me a couple of times. Rick, you have this interesting way of taking, well, one of my mentors said, you're like a preacher. You take us to the pulpit, the wake, the party, and back to the pulpit every time. You can do this. You can drop the F-bombs. You can talk about some really taboo stuff. But in the whole time that you're doing this with people, you make it feel so safe to go explore that really scary stuff. And then you elevate it. It's like, okay, yeah, let's talk the taboo. I mean, there are times when I'm on stage, I talk about being a big hoe the whole time I was married. You know, there's those moments. But when I say, okay, I admit I was a big hoe and I'm not proud of it. But in that moment that I was being a big hoe, I actually found myself.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not proud of what I did, but man, I had to kind of go through that baptism of going, I'm not the best guy in the world. And now it gives me that window to go, but here's what the good guy really looks like.
Yep. 100%.
And I think those are those moments that somebody that's going to hear me say that is going to be sitting in a classroom or sitting across from me as a coach or hearing me in a stage, you know, with 5,000 people going, oh my God, that's me. And wow, he just gave me that window, that permission to go, okay, I can breathe through this, because there is a way to breathe through this stuff.
Yeah. I think the permission's big, but it's also coming to that self-realization, I think. Like we a lot of times we just don't allow ourselves the time to do it.
Right.
And, you know, that's on my podcast. It's about, you know, how do we as parents help our kids to come to more of that realization sooner, rather than have them get to middle age and then all of a sudden go, what am I doing with my life, kind of thing. You know, let's try to provide that perspective as early as possible.
Well, and time's such an interesting thing, because if you really think about it, Tony Robbins talks about this. Time is an emotion. That's all it is. When you really think about how we look at time, every time, I hate to say that, but when we do that, time is always tied to some emotional trigger.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So if we start to realize that, oh, I don't have enough time, really? What emotion is behind that not having enough time?
Right.
Then we can make some really powerful moves to how do we really utilize time. I'd much rather utilize time now to get real with myself, to do that deep dive, so that at middle age, I've already practiced and that muscle's working really good so that I know that this is how I do things. And what I love about the millennial generation, at least the ones I've really powerfully gotten to interact with, especially WDSers, is I think they kind of got the inside scoop on this.
Yeah.
They realize that time is something that is on our side if we start to perceive it that way. And then if you take and couple up what Tony Robbins says about time is really an emotion, and you can really understand the emotions around everything we look at in a time, a time bubble, so to speak, you can really start to do some powerful stuff with how you manage your time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you on the millennial point too. I interviewed a couple for my podcast, and they got a pretty clear, like they figure things out a lot sooner than certainly I did and a lot of my friends. And maybe that's just sort of where we are in the world today and their generation. That's the kind of things that they're looking at, and they're very selfish yet service oriented, if that makes sense. And they don't want to waste that time. They want to get to that point of happiness for themselves, which I think is fantastic.
And I think the thing about the selfishness is I often have heard myself say that too. It's like, well, they kind of come from a selfish space, but I'm a baby boomer. So to be selfish was like, everything was for everyone else. But I think what's happening in the millennial, and I've been watching my own daughters because I have an 18 and a 21-year-old, and how they perceive the world. To somebody from the baby boomer generation or older, maybe a little bit of the Gen Xers, it can come off as selfish, but what it really is most of the time is, how do I care for myself so that I can be in better service to the world, to the planet, to society? I mean, my youngest one is 18 years old, and I have watched her in ethic bowl competitions and debates and stuff, and I'm like, I was never there in the way she is.
Right.
But where she comes at it from is, this is how I take care of myself. This is how I believe I'm supposed to show up in the world. And you can call me, selfish or whatever you want to call. But the way she shows up is going to have such a beautiful impact in the generation that's coming up behind her.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we take these things and we see it through the lens of, selfishness and everything. And I went through a lot of that because as I came out of the closet, there was a lot of what you're doing is very selfish and you're hurting. And, okay, I get that. I never will deny there was a lot of hurt and pain that went on through that journey. But I'm so much better for having come clean and said, this is the reality of who I am, because now I can say that on so many fronts. This is who Rick is as a podcaster. This is who Rick is as an author, as a speaker, as a coach. I am raw, I'm real, I'm transparent. I'm not afraid to show my dirty underwear, but I'm also not afraid to hold you in that space and take you to that place where you can strip down to your dirt and go, yeah, this is me. And because we can both be really real, guess what? We're having a beautiful freaking relationship now, because there is no pretending. There is no stuff. And we get to have real, true, interactive, deep, intimate relationships with one another. And to me, that's what the world's all about.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is fantastic. I don't know. I mean, we could talk about this stuff.
We could talk for hours.
For hours, man.
I would love to just like throw this into the mix. That one of the things that I think inspires me most about being part of the WDS family is it's one of the. I've been involved. I've got 53 years under my belt here, and I've been involved in lots of different communities and social groups and all that sort of stuff. And I will have to say, I find it rather interesting, unless I've just been missed them somewhere. But I find it rather interesting that this is one group that I truly feel like every time I get with some of them, most of them, it's family. It is truly family.
Yeah.
And we may have all different perspectives on what we're doing and where we're going, but there's something about just the heartbeat of the WDSer. It's almost like you can pick them out in a crowd.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how to quite put my finger on it, but I'm so with you. I'm so grateful to have found it. It's your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was like kind of the same thing. I had read Chris's books and I heard him on a few podcasts, and he was talking about this thing called the World Domination Summit. This will be my third year this year. So it just kind of kept coming up within a short period of time. Right. And I was sort of like, maybe this is something's pointing me to the Northwest, Yep. And I went to go check it out totally by myself. I was like, hey, I think I'm going to just go see what this is all about. And amazing. Changed my life in a lot of ways, from the people I've met, and now expanding here to Los Angeles and being on the phone here with you. And, incredible.
Yeah. So it's funny too, being somebody who, comes from the quote marginalized LGBTQ community. When I talk about WDS in any forum, especially with those who know I'm gay, they're like, oh, so you're one of those people. I'm like, what do you mean? And I always know they're going right to the BDSM sort of thing. I'm like, no. Wait. You just put two different things together. Let me explain what this is all about. It's about really going out and dominating the world with your beautiful gifts and stuff, and being in that space of adventure and service and community. But I always love it. So now I use it as kind of like, so now I go to this awesome, really cool event once a year.
Yeah.
It's called the World Domination Summit. I always say it just like that.
Right.
And so just because I want to just like get people to go, oh my God, he's really kinky. And I said, and it is the kinkiest heartbeat thing I do the whole freaking year, because I get to connect with really awesome people that are out there doing just amazing stuff in the world.
Yeah.
Suddenly they're like, wait, we thought you were talking about some like really kinky BDSM thing. I'm like, no, I'm not. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, because it stops people, and they will never, ever forget that conversation.
Right.
Because you kind of anchored something. It's like they'll hear that again, and the first thing that'll happen is they'll have that other image, but they'll always remember what it was really about. And that's a really cool way for us as quote unquote ambassadors of this tribe to really pull people into that space and let them know. I don't even describe it as like it's just entrepreneurs. I say it's people who are really having an impact in the world, living unconventional lives and doing unconventional things that add a heartbeat to the world like no other organization that I've ever around is doing.
Yeah,
so.
That's a great description. I have a hard time describing it to people, and people are just, deer in the headlights, staring at me like, okay, weirdo. I don't know what you're talking about.
I was at the World Happiness Summit, and I was talking about it, and somebody said, well, I'm having a hard time grasping what you're saying. I'm like, let me tell you this. It's like having, the whole United States just passed a law that pot is free and can be used anywhere you want to use it. It's like spending a whole weekend with everybody just being high. But nobody's high whatsoever except on just doing what they're doing in life.
Right.
And the gal's, oh, okay, now I get it. I'm like, yeah, and you probably smoke pot too. And she's like, I do. I'm like, see, I had to give you the right metaphor for you to really get it. But it's like, yeah, you're just sitting around smoking away, and you're just kind of connecting with each other on the smoke, but there's no smoke, so to speak. So,
right. Good stuff. Oh man. Okay. Well, now I know our next get together is at your place. You have graciously offered your place out in Riverside.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it from all you LA people that, oh my God, Riverside, that's so far to drive. Okay, it's not that far. It'll take you longer to go from Santa Monica to Hollywood. Trust me. Been there, done that. So, but yes, it is at my place. And my husband and I are huge winos, so you guys are in for a real treat. I haven't looked at the wine count right now, but I know we're over 250 bottles in the house right now.
Holy moly. Jeez. Okay, cool.
It's our little addiction, I guess. But we love wine. I grew up in the Napa Valley, so that's where it all started for me. We belong to several wineries in Temecula, a couple in the Paso Robles area, and we love sharing that part of life with people. So we're probably going to do 8 or 10 different tastings. We'll have some cheeses that we pair it with. We're going to have everybody bring some food along with it, but we'll definitely introduce people to some just really interesting wines. Some of them, people are going to be surprised that they're actually local. I mean, Temecula is like 30 minutes from here in Riverside, and it's actually some pretty decent wineries down there. So I'm really looking forward to just, breaking some bread, drinking some wine, sharing what we know about it. And if it's warm enough, the pool will be open. I'm not going to guarantee that it's going to be warm enough, but who knows? In another few weeks, it may be warm enough to be dipping some toes in the pool. So,
right. All right, cool. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that maybe we missed or haven't talked about?
The only thing I would say is, let's keep this going, folks. I mean, we've got such a beautiful opportunity for community here, and we don't have to make this just a once a year event, so to speak. Even though I love WDS. It is that event that just, even now, as I said those words, even though I wasn't going, I've got a little bit of goosebumps happening right now. But, let's really lean into one another, because there's so much talent in this group, and there's so many beautiful ideas, and there's so much support. And sometimes you just need to reach out and say, I need that support, whatever it is. And I think that's what Chris has beautifully created with this, is the opportunity for those simplest forms of support without a lot of expectations for anything back in return. And I know I'm one of those that I always say, whatever I can do, let me know. I love to be in support of my fellow man, especially my WDSers. So I guess that would probably be the way to wrap it up.
I love it. All right. Rick, look forward to spending time at your place. And, big thanks for chatting and for being the kickoff for this series, and for the work that you do for the world. Thank you very much, sir.
You bet, man. Thank you so much, Paul, for the opportunity.
Okay, Rick. We'll talk soon, my friend.
All right. Take care.
Okay. All right. Bye.